You got a raise. Finally. So why does your bank account look exactly the same? Here's something nobody warned you about. The moment people around you sense you have a little more money, everything starts costing more. Not because prices went up. Because you changed without even noticing. This happens to millions of Americans every single year. They work harder. They earn more. They think they're finally getting ahead. And then nothing changes. Same stress. Same anxiety. Same quiet dread when the bills hit. The problem isn't your salary. It's not inflation. It's not the economy. Not entirely, anyway. The real problem is something way more invisible and way more personal. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. It starts with a simple, quiet shift. The moment people in your life, your friends, your family, your coworkers, start to feel like you're doing a little better, your life gets more expensive. Not because they're bad people. Because of something much deeper. Think about the last time someone said, "You're doing well now, you can cover this one, right?" Maybe it was a friend at dinner. Maybe it was a family member who needed help. Maybe it was just the vibe, that invisible pressure to step up, to match the moment, to not seem cheap. Economists have a name for this. It's called social spending pressure. But most people just call it life. Here's how it works. When your income goes up, people recalibrate what they expect from you. Not out of malice. Out of habit. You used to split the bill. Now they assume you'll pick it up. You used to skip the trip. Now you're expected to come along. You used to say no. Now saying no feels like a statement. And the worst part? You start saying yes. Because it feels good. Because you finally can. Because you don't want to seem like you haven't changed. But here's where it gets worse. There's a second thing happening at the exact same time. And it doesn't come from the people around you. It comes from you. It's called lifestyle creep. And it is silent. And it is brutal. Lifestyle creep is when your spending quietly expands to match, and then exceed, your income. You start with a small upgrade. Maybe it's a nicer apartment. Or you start ordering delivery instead of cooking. Or you trade your $12 gym membership for a $75 one with better lighting. None of these feel like big decisions. But here's the math. If you earn $4,000 a month and spend $3,800, you save $200. Then you get a raise. Now you earn $5,200. But instead of saving the extra $1,200, your spending quietly rises to $5,000. You're saving $200 again. You got a 30% raise. And you're no richer. This happens to people making $40,000 a year. It happens to people making $400,000 a year. Income level doesn't protect you from this. And this is the part nobody talks about. Here's where it gets psychological. When people know, or even just suspect, that you have money, a second invisible system kicks in. Call it the visibility trap. The more visible your success is, the more expensive your life becomes. Not just socially, but internally. When people see that you drive a nicer car, your brain starts defending that identity. You feel pressure to maintain it. To keep the image consistent. To not look like you've gone backwards. Psychologists call this status quo bias, the discomfort of losing something you've already shown the world you have. And so you keep spending, not because you want more stuff, but because you're afraid of having less. This is one of the most quietly devastating financial traps in America right now. Not credit card debt. Not overspending on luxuries. Spending to maintain an image that's slowly eating your future. If you're still watching, this next part changes everything. Because everything we've talked about so far, the social tax, the lifestyle creep, the visibility trap, those are all symptoms. Not the disease. The real problem is something most financial advice completely ignores. You've been told the secret to building wealth is earning more. Hustle harder. Get the promotion. Start a side business. And none of that is wrong. But here's the twist. Earning more, without managing your visibility, often makes you poorer in practice. Studies show that the majority of Americans who receive significant raises do not increase their net savings within the first 2 years. The money comes in. And then, slowly, invisibly, it goes back out. Because the problem was never the income. The problem is that nobody teaches us how to emotionally handle having more money. The person earning less, who keeps their financial life private and controlled, is building more wealth than the person making twice as much. Because they didn't fall into the visibility trap. They kept their upgrade invisible. What happened next changed everything for the people who figured this out. There's a concept that the quietly wealthy live by. It has no fancy name. No viral hashtag. But it works. It's called financial discretion, and it's the single most underrated money skill in America. Financial discretion means you stop broadcasting your upgrades. You stop letting your social circle set your spending floor. You stop letting the version of you that people see become more expensive than the version of you that's actually trying to build a future. This isn't about being cheap. It's about being strategic. The quietly wealthy don't spend less on things that matter. They spend less on things that perform. They upgrade their health, not their image. They invest in their peace, not their status. They protect their future, not their reputation. And critically, they have a rule. Every time your income goes up, your savings rate goes up before your lifestyle does. Not after. Before. Automate the savings increase the same week the raise hits. Before the new spending patterns have time to form. Before anyone around you even knows things changed. And this is where most people get trapped, right at the finish line. The last piece is the hardest one. Because it's not about money at all. It's about relationships. At some point, you will have to say no to people who expect a yes because they think you can afford it. That's uncomfortable. It can feel selfish. It can feel cold. But here's the truth nobody says out loud. You cannot pour from an empty account. And you cannot build a future for the people you love if you're spending it all on the optics of success. Saying no to performing wealth is not the same as being selfish. It's the most responsible thing you can do for yourself and for the people who will eventually need you to actually be okay. So here's what you actually do. First, the next time your income goes up, even a little, increase your savings rate before you touch your lifestyle. Even by 1%. Automate it. Make it invisible. Second, audit your visibility. Ask yourself, how much of what I'm spending is for my future, and how much is for an image? The goal isn't to hide your success. The goal is to protect it. The people who quietly build wealth aren't hiding from money. They're protecting it from the world, and from themselves.